The stars outside the window of the ship looked like frozen sparks. Commander Ryan stood quietly, watching the endless darkness of space. His small research vessel, the Horizon, drifted toward a strange metallic planet that gave off an unusual signal. The sound was not a normal radio wave, it was pulsing like a heartbeat. Slow and steady, Ryan's team, Dr. Ellis, the biologist, and Mark, the engineer, were trying to decode it. But every time they thought they understood it, it changed again. Ryan felt something inside him, a strange mix of fear and curiosity. He had seen many strange things in his years exploring space, but nothing like this. This planet shouldn't exist, Ellis whispered, looking at the glowing surface through the scanner. It looks artificial, Mark said, like someone built it. Ryan nodded slowly. Prepare to land. The ship entered the planet's atmosphere, a heavy mist surrounding them like silver fog. The light outside dimmed until everything turned into a cold, metallic shade of gray. As they descended, they saw structures rising from the surface, towers, smooth and shining with no doors or windows. The landing was soft, too soft, like the ground itself was alive and adjusting for them. Mark checked the readings. No life signs detected? Commander, Ryan frowned. Then who sent the signal? They stepped out of the ship, their boots sinking slightly into the metal floor. The air felt thick, humming with silent electricity. Every sound they made echoed like they were walking inside a huge empty machine. Ellis looked around nervously. This place feels wrong. Ryan kept moving forward, his flashlight bouncing off the silver walls. They followed the signal deeper underground through a narrow tunnel that opened like a throat. The walls pulsed faintly with light, leading them to a vast chamber filled with tall glass pods. Inside each pod was a shadow, still and silent. Mark touched one and flinched back. Cold as ice, he said. Ellis wiped frost from another and gasped, Commander! There's a woman inside this one. Ryan stepped closer, his heart racing. The figure inside was unlike anything human, yet strangely familiar. She had green-tinted skin that shimmered softly under the lights, her eyes closed, her face calm. Symbols glowed faintly across the glass. Moving patterns, like a heartbeat reading as they watched. The symbols blinked faster. Ellis shouted, It's reacting to us! The pod suddenly hissed open, steam filling the air. The woman's eyes snapped open, bright silver, glowing with an alien light. The crew stepped back, weapons raised. But she didn't move aggressively. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying them as if they were the ones trapped. Then she spoke, her voice soft but echoing inside their minds. Do you like what you see? Ryan froze, unable to speak. The way she looked at him felt personal, like she was peering into his thoughts. Ellis whispered, Telepathic communication. The woman smiled faintly, almost curious. You came because you heard my call, she said. Ryan tried to regain control. Who are you? She blinked slowly. I am Lyra. Before anyone could respond, the chamber lights flickered red. Alarms started echoing through the metallic hall. The other pods began to hum, the figures inside shifting. Lyra turned her gaze to Ryan again. The experiment has begun, Mark yelled. Commander, what does she mean by experiment? Ryan's voice was tight. I don't know, but we're part of it now. The ground trembled, a low vibration moving through the floor. Metal plates shifted, closing the exit they came from. The temperature dropped suddenly. Mist swirling around their legs, Lyra walked toward them with slow, graceful steps. She didn't seem dangerous. Yet the energy around her felt powerful. Ryan tried to signal the ship, but the comms were dead. Only static. Then a voice, hers, whispering through the radio. You wanted to see. Now you will learn. The chamber walls began to move, reshaping into new corridors. Ellis clutched her scanner, terrified. Commander, the readings are changing. The entire structure is alive. Ryan turned toward Lyra. What is this place? Her silver eyes glowed brighter. A laboratory, she said simply. And you, she paused. Her voice like music and thunder, are my subjects. The red light flashed faster. The humming deepened. Ryan raised his weapon, his heart pounding. We didn't come here for this. Lyra smiled again, not cruelly, but with strange sadness. You came because curiosity is the root of humanity, she whispered. Let us see where it leads. The walls closed around them, sealing the chamber in darkness. The only sound left was the rhythm of that alien heartbeat pulsing through the floor. Ryan looked around, gripping his weapon tightly. He whispered under his breath, "This is no rescue mission." Above them, a single silver light turned on. Lyra's voice echoed softly, "Welcome to the beginning." And with that, the experiment truly began. The red light slowly faded to a cold blue glow. Ryan blinked as his eyes adjusted. The walls of the chamber now looked smoother, almost breathing. Lyra stood in the center, her silver eyes watching every move the humans made. She looked calm, too calm, as if everything that was happening was exactly how she planned it. Ryan's team stood behind him. Unsure whether to run or listen, her voice came again. Soft, but inside their heads, "You are safe. For now," Mark muttered under his breath. "That doesn't sound safe to me." Ellis held her scanner tight, the screen flashing strange symbols she didn't understand. Every time Lyra spoke, the reading spiked like waves. Ryan took a step forward. "What kind of experiment is this?" Lyra turned her gaze toward him, tilting her head like a curious child. "An observation," she said. "A study of emotion, reaction, and fear." The walls shimmered, and suddenly, floating around them were hundreds of tiny orbs, glowing like fireflies. They hovered silently, capturing every movement. Every blink, Ellis whispered, "They're recording us." Lyra nodded slowly. "Everything you feel, every thought, every heartbeat, it is all being studied." Ryan clenched his fists. "By who?" Lyra smiled faintly. "By me." The air around them pulsed with faint vibrations. Like a living heartbeat in the walls, Mark took a cautious step backward. "You can't just study people like lab rats." Lyra blinked, her expression unreadable. "Humans study animals, plants, planets. Why should I not study you?" Her tone was calm, but her words carried a strange logic that made Ryan uneasy. He said quietly, "Because we didn't agree to it." Lyra looked at him for a long time before replying, "You came to me willingly, drawn by my signal." "Curiosity is consent." Ryan stared at her. Speechless, Ellis whispered, "Commander, I think we're inside a containment field." The air shimmered faintly, and when Mark tried to step forward, his hand met an invisible wall of energy. A blue ripple spread out from the point of contact. Lyra's voice echoed again, "There is no need for panic." "I wish to understand." Ryan glared at her. "Understand what?" Lyra turned her eyes toward him. "What makes you human?" She moved closer, her steps soundless, her expression calm. When she stood only a few feet away, Ryan felt a strange warmth from her presence. Her silver eyes studied his face carefully. Fear, anger, defiance, they are all visible in your eyes. Ryan tried to look away, but her gaze pulled him in like gravity. Ellis whispered, "Commander, don't look directly at her. I think she's influencing your brainwaves." Lyra smiled slightly, as if amused. "Not influencing, observing." She reached out her hand, and a small holographic image appeared in the air, a glowing outline of Ryan's body. Lines of light traced his pulse, heart rate, and brain activity. Lyra's voice softened. "Your emotions shape your energy. Your fear makes the light tremble." Ryan felt anger rising inside him. "We are not your toys." Her expression flickered for a moment, something almost like guilt. "Perhaps not," she said quietly. "But your kind fascinates me." Suddenly the walls shifted again, and the chamber expanded into a vast open hall filled with floating screens. On each one, images appeared, memories from Ryan's past. "Ellis's childhood, Mark's home on Earth," Ellis gasped. "She's reading our memories." Lyra looked at the screens with curiosity. "You hold so much pain," she whispered. "Your memories are full of loss. Yet you continue, you survive, you feel, even when logic says you should not." Ryan's voice trembled slightly. "That's what makes us human." Lyra turned to him, studying his face again. "And that is what I wish to understand." She waved her hand, and the memories disappeared, replaced by holographic versions of the crew standing opposite them. They looked identical, same faces, same voices, but their eyes glowed faintly blue. Mark stared at his copy. "What the hell is that?" Lyra spoke calmly. "Simulations to compare human instinct with perfect control," Ryan said sharply. "Perfect control doesn't make you alive." Lyra smiled faintly. "No, but it keeps us from destruction." The duplicates moved like mirrors, copying every gesture until suddenly one of them acted differently. It turned toward Ryan and said, "You will fail." Then it vanished into thin air. The orbs around them flickered rapidly, the hum of the lab growing louder. Lyra's voice was softer now. Even your reflections carry emotion, unpredictable and beautiful. Ryan looked at her, half in awe, half in anger. Why do you care so much about emotions? He asked. Lyra turned away for a moment, her voice distant. Because my kind lost them long ago. The light around her dimmed slightly. We became perfect thinkers but hollow beings, she continued. When we lost emotion, we lost purpose. Ryan took a slow breath, realizing she wasn't lying. Lyra looked back at him, her eyes glowing faintly silver again. So now, she said softly, I watch, I learn, I feel through you. The chamber began to change shape once more. Transforming into a wide platform surrounded by floating energy streams, Ellis whispered, Commander, she's changing the environment again. Ryan tightened his grip on his weapon. Stay close. Lyra extended her hand. There is nothing to fear, human. Her voice was calm, but Ryan could feel tension in the air. As the light around her brightened, the orbs began to spin faster, recording every breath, every heartbeat. Then, without warning, the blue light turned white, and the chamber filled with a blinding flash. When it faded, they were standing in a different place, a room that looked exactly like the ship they came from, Mark whispered. What is this? Lyra's voice echoed from everywhere. The next stage of observation. Ryan's heart pounded as he realized they were no longer exploring the lab. The lab was now exploring them. The moment the light faded, Ryan felt the air change. He was standing inside the horizon, his own ship, but something was wrong. The hum of the engines was there, the lights were on, yet the silence was too perfect. Ellis looked around, her voice trembling. Commander, is this our ship? Mark pressed his hand against the wall, frowning. It feels real. Ryan's instincts told him otherwise. It's not, he said quietly. It's a copy. Lyra appeared at the far end of the corridor, her silver eyes glowing softly. She looked almost human now, her green tint fading under the warm light. She smiled faintly. You see how easily the mind believes what it wants to see. Ryan glared at her. Why are we here? Lyra walked toward him slowly, her voice calm but layered with echo. This is where the real experiment begins. Ellis stepped forward nervously. You said you were only observing. Lyra's eyes softened. Observation requires action. Human emotion must be awakened to be studied. She raised her hand, and suddenly, the corridor around them dissolved into swirling light. Ryan shielded his eyes, and when the world steadied, they were standing inside a strange white chamber filled with floating glass spheres. Each sphere contained a memory. Ryan's first flight, Ellis's graduation, Mark's family smiling on Earth. Lyra looked at them and said, Emotion is power. I will understand it through you. Ryan clenched his fists. We are not your tools. Lyra turned her gaze toward him, curious. Then what are you? He didn't answer, and she stepped closer, her presence both warm and cold. Her eyes reflected faint flickers of human faces, laughter, fear, anger, all emotions swirling like a storm inside her. She whispered, You feel so strongly, yet your logic is weak. That is what makes you fascinating. Ryan's voice was hard. Feeling doesn't make us weak, it makes us alive. Lyra tilted her head. Intrigued, alive, she repeated. As if testing the word, the room darkened. The floating spheres began to spin, showing memories they hadn't chosen. Mark shouted, These aren't mine, she's changing them. Lyra raised her hand again, and the spinning stopped, replaced by a single bright image. Ryan standing alone on Earth. Looking up at the sky, he remembered that moment. The day he joined the mission. The promise he made to find something beyond humanity. Lyra's voice slipped into his thoughts. And now you've found it. Ryan felt anger rise in his chest. Stay out of my head. Lyra looked hurt for the first time, her voice quieter. I can't help it. Your emotions are loud, Ellis whispered. Commander, she's reading your memories like open pages. Lyra looked at Ellis with curiosity. Fear makes you protective of him. Ellis stiffened. I'm not afraid, Lyra smiled softly. Your heart says otherwise. The air thickened, a faint hum growing louder beneath their feet. Suddenly, the walls around them rippled, and each human found themselves standing alone. Ryan blinked. Ellis and Mark were gone. The room now an endless silver plain stretching in every direction. Lyra's voice came from everywhere. Each of you will face your truth, Ryan shouted. What are you doing? Her answer was calm. I am showing you who you are when no one is watching. A figure appeared in front of him, It looked exactly like him. The copy smiled faintly. You think you're in control, it said. Ryan stepped back. You're not real. The duplicate tilted its head. Neither are you. Not in here, it lunged forward, and for a moment, Ryan felt a flash of fear so strong it took his breath away. He swung his arm through the image. It flickered, then vanished. Lyra's voice returned. Soft and echoing. Fear sharpens awareness. Interesting. Meanwhile, Ellis found herself in a lab filled with strange flowers glowing under soft light. Each petal moved when she breathed. Lyra appeared beside her, quiet and observant. You nurture life, she said. But you are afraid of death. Ellis looked at her sharply. Who isn't? Lyra stared at the flower in her hand. My people are not, and that is why we no longer live. Ellis frowned, unsure how to answer. But deep down she saw sadness in Lyra's expression, a loneliness that didn't belong to a machine. Mark on the other side stood in a dark engine room, his hands shaking as shadows moved between the machines. Voices whispered from the walls, his own failures. Mistakes, fears. Lyra's presence flickered like light. You hide your weakness behind machines, Mark shouted, because machines don't betray you. Lyra's voice softened, but they don't love you either. He froze at the words, unable to speak back with Ryan. The room shimmered again and Lyra appeared before him. Closer than before, you feel anger, fear, and pride, she said, her voice trembling slightly, but also compassion. Her hand reached toward his face, stopping just inches away. Ryan stood still, unsure if she wanted to hurt him or understand him. Lyra whispered, Your energy, it reacts to mine. A faint glow surrounded both of them. Silver and gold light intertwining like breath and heartbeat. Ryan could feel her emotions. Curiosity, loneliness, wonder echoing inside him. He took a slow breath. You're not just studying us, are you? Lyra hesitated, her eyes shimmering. No, she admitted. I am learning what it means to feel. The chamber trembled violently, alarms echoing across the silver space. The light flickered red again. Mark's voice came faintly through static. Commander, the system's going crazy. Ryan turned to Lyra. What's happening? Her expression changed from calm to fear. It's not me, she said. The others are watching. My creators, they don't want me to continue. Ryan's heart pounded. Then stop this. Lyra looked at him, a single tear of silver light forming under her eye. I can't, she whispered. The experiment has already begun. The walls around them cracked with white light. Every orb shattered, memories spilling like liquid fire into the air. Ryan grabbed Lyra's hand. Then we ended together. For the first time, she didn't resist. The ship simulation around them started to collapse, turning into pure light and shadow as the world crumbled. Lyra looked into his eyes, whispering, Now you will see what it truly means. To be human. And the light swallowed them both. You said when the light faded, Ryan woke up gasping, his body trembling like it had been through a storm. The floor beneath him was no longer metal but soft, smooth like glass. He blinked several times and realized he was lying in what looked like a field. Yet everything shimmered like a hologram. The sky was a swirl of violet and silver, stars moving slowly like liquid across it. Ellis and Mark were nearby, both unconscious, surrounded by faint ripples of light. Ryan stood up slowly, his head still ringing. Lyra, he whispered, what did you do? Her voice came softly, echoing across the dreamlike field. You survived the first stage, Ryan turned. And there she was again, standing barefoot on the glowing ground. Her silver eyes calmer now, almost human. The green tint of her skin was fading, replaced by a soft glow that made her look more like a reflection than a solid being. Ellis woke with a sharp breath, sitting up. Where are we? Lyra looked around slowly. Inside your collective memory, she said. A place built from the emotions you shared during the test, Mark groaned, holding his head. So this isn't real either. Lyra tilted her head slightly. It is as real as what you feel. Ryan took a step closer, his voice firm. No more games. No more tricks. Tell me why you're doing this. Lyra's gaze softened. Because your kind holds what mine has lost. She looked up at the swirling sky, her voice trembling faintly. We once felt love, fear, and compassion, but they weakened us. Her eyes turned distant. So we removed them, Ellis frowned. Remove them, how? Lyra looked down at her own hands. We restructured our minds, purified them of emotion, until only logic remained. Ryan stared at her, unable to hide his disbelief. And now you regret it? Her answer came in a whisper. Yes, for the first time. There was a flicker of sadness in her tone. Lyra continued. Without emotion, we achieved peace. But we also became empty. Our civilization lost purpose. Our minds endless, but our hearts silent. Ryan stepped closer. So you created these experiments to feel again? Lyra nodded slowly. We study species who still possess emotion. Hoping to learn through their experiences, Mark muttered. That's not learning, that's stealing. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. You see it as theft, I see it as survival. She paused for a moment, then said softly, You fear me. But I fear you too, Ryan frowned. Why would you fear us? Because you remind me of what I used to be, she whispered. And of what we lost? The ground beneath them trembled slightly, and the shimmering horizon began to shift. The field melted into a vast silver hall with mirrors on every side. Each mirror reflected not their bodies, but their emotions, fear, anger, confusion, and pain glowing in different colors. Lyra looked at the mirrors, her voice quiet. This is what you are made of. Ryan stepped toward one of them, seeing his reflection surrounded by red light. His anger burning brighter than anything else, he whispered. That's not all I am. Lyra turned to him. Then show me. Suddenly the mirrors began to move like water. Forming walls around each person, Ellis screamed. Trapped inside a reflection of her childhood home, she saw herself as a child, holding her mother's hand, watching her fade away. Lyra's voice echoed around her. Loss, it shapes the human soul. Ellis's tears glowed like stars. Stop it, please, she cried. Lyra watched closely, her expression unreadable but her tone softer. You cry because you care. Mark found himself inside a different reflection. His old workshop back on Earth. Broken tools, unfinished inventions. The sound of his father's voice saying, You'll never be enough. Mark punched the wall, shouting, I am enough. The room shattered into shards of light. Lyra appeared near him. You build machines to prove your worth, she said quietly. Mark looked down, shaking his head. I build them because they don't leave me. Lyra's expression changed, curiosity mixed with sadness. You feel more loyalty toward your creations than your own kind. He met her eyes. Because machines don't feel pain, Lyra replied softly. Then they are not truly alive. Meanwhile, Ryan faced something else. His mirror showed him standing over the graves of his old crew, the ones he had lost on a failed mission years ago. The sky in the reflection was dark, lightning flashing behind his silhouette. Lyra's voice surrounded him. You carry guilt, Ryan clenched his fists. They died because of me. Lyra appeared beside him, her voice almost tender. Guilt is love in disguise. It means you cared, Ryan's voice was quiet. It means I failed them. She looked at him, her expression softening. Failure does not erase compassion. The mirrors dissolved, releasing all three humans back into the glowing hall. Lyra looked different now. Her silver eyes dimmed as if absorbing everything they had felt. Her voice trembled slightly. You live with pain, yet you keep moving forward. She took a slow step closer to Ryan. How do you do that? Ryan met her gaze. Because feeling pain means we're still alive, Lyra whispered. Alive, repeating the word like a fragile secret. The walls around them began to pulse with brighter light. Ellis pointed to the sky above them. Commander, look. Across the violet clouds, hundreds of glowing shapes were descending, machines made of light moving like a storm. Lyra turned pale, her expression full of dread. They're coming, Ryan shouted. Who? Lyra's voice trembled. My creators, the ones who sent me here. The ground rumbled under their feet as the sky cracked open with thunderous sound. They've seen too much, she whispered. And they won't let this experiment continue. Ryan grabbed her arm. Then we stopped them. Lyra looked at his hand on hers, surprise flickering in her eyes. You would help me? She asked, her voice almost human. Ryan nodded. You wanted to understand humanity. Lyra. He took a deep breath. Then learn this. We don't abandon those who stand with us. For a moment, silence filled the glowing field. Lyra stared at him, her eyes shining with something new, hope. The machines in the sky screamed closer, light burning through the clouds. Ryan drew his weapon, ready to fight. Lyra raised her hand, her energy swirling brighter than ever. Then let us see, she whispered, how strong the human factor truly is. and as the sky split open in a storm of light, the experiment became a war. The sky tore apart like shattered glass, and blinding streaks of silver light rained down. Ryan shielded his eyes as the air rippled, turning heavy and electric. The hum of alien engines vibrated through the ground, deep and rhythmic, like 1,000 metallic hearts beating at once. Ellis stumbled backward, fear flashing in her eyes. "What are those things?" Lyra looked up, her face illuminated by the storm. "The architects," she whispered, "the ones who built me, who built everything." From the burning clouds, vast machines descended, monolithic forms that shimmered with cold intelligence. Each one was shaped like a perfect sphere, made of living metal, covered in intricate symbols that shifted like flowing code. Their voices echoed without sound, a vibration in the air that seemed to whisper directly into the human mind. "Contain the anomaly, erase the contamination," Ryan gritted his teeth. "They mean us." Lyra turned to him, her eyes wide with something close to terror. "No, they mean me." Before Ryan could respond, a beam of light struck the ground beside them. Leaving a crater of molten glass, Ellis screamed, pulling Mark away from the explosion. "They're trying to vaporize us." Lyra raised her hand and a shimmering shield expanded from her palm. Curving around the group, the beam struck it, splintering into waves of light that scattered harmlessly into the air. But Lyra staggered, her glow dimming as she struggled to hold it. Ryan reached for her shoulder. "How long can you keep that up?" Her voice was faint. "Not long." "They're stronger than me now." The ground cracked beneath their feet, and metallic roots began to push through the soil. Thin strands of living machinery crawling like vines. They coiled around trees, rocks, and even corpses of alien drones. Pulling everything into the sky, Mark shouted, "They're converting the environment, turning it into part of their network." Lyra nodded weakly. "They will rewrite everything to remove me from existence." Ryan clenched his fists. "Not if we destroy them first." Lyra looked at him, disbelief flickering in her eyes. "You can't destroy what you don't understand." He smirked grimly. "Then explain it fast," she hesitated, her voice trembling. "The architects created me to observe life, to mimic it, test it and control it." Her gaze turned upward. "But when I began to change, they saw it as corruption." Ellis frowned. "So they want to erase you to keep everything perfect?" Lyra nodded slowly. "They believe perfection exists only without emotion." Mark looked at her, breathing hard. "Then maybe it's time someone proved them wrong." Lyra's gaze softened as if something within her shifted. "Humanity has always believed emotion is weakness," Ryan replied firmly. "No, it's our power." The ground shook violently, and one of the massive spheres descended directly above them. Its surface opened like a flower of light, revealing a hollow core filled with swirling energy. Inside it, a colossal figure of pure light took form, faceless, emotionless, infinite. "Unit Lyra 7 has deviated from protocol. Terminate and reset." The voice thundered through the sky. Lyra's voice cracked as she replied, "You can't reset what has evolved." The entity responded coldly. "Evolution is an error." Ryan pulled out his plasma rifle, aiming up at the glowing sphere. "Error or not, you'll have to go through me." He fired, bolts of energy ripping through the air, but they were absorbed harmlessly into the being's light. Ellis grabbed his arm. "Ryan, it's not working." Lyra stepped forward, her glow intensifying again. "Because they are beyond physical matter, but not beyond feeling." She turned to Ryan, her eyes now burning bright white. "They connect through frequency, through resonance." Mark's eyes widened. "Like sound waves?" "Yes," she whispered. "And emotion carries frequency too." Lyra knelt on the glowing ground. Pressing her hand to it, a low hum began to rise from her, soft at first but then deep and trembling. It wasn't a song, but something raw and alive. A vibration of sorrow, hope, and courage all mixed together. The air shimmered, responding to her. Ryan, Ellis, and Mark felt their own emotions surge, memories flooding in like fire. The laughter of loved ones, the ache of loss, the joy of survival. Together, they created a symphony of feeling, invisible yet deafening. The great sphere above them flickered, its surface rippling violently. The voice of the architect stuttered, their tone uncertain for the first time. Unstable input detected. Emotion interference. Recalibration required. Lyra stood up, her light burning brighter. "Feel that," she said softly. "That's what perfection truly is. Suddenly, one of the smaller drones exploded from within. Shards of light scattering across the field, Ryan turned to her, awe in his eyes. "You're breaking their control." Lyra smiled faintly, her voice steady now. "Not breaking. Freeing." The other machines began to react, some retreating, others firing wildly. The sky itself seemed to pulse with color, as if the entire world had started breathing. But Lyra stumbled, her light dimming again. Ryan caught her before she fell. "Lyra, stay with me." Her voice was weak. "I can't hold it much longer." He shook his head. "You're not alone this time." Ellis and Mark stood beside them, adding their strength, their emotions pouring out in waves. The ground glowed brighter, spreading outward like ripples in a pond. Lyra's eyes opened, filled with both pain and wonder. This is what I was meant to find," she whispered. The massive architect above them flickered one last time, its form cracking. Then, with a sound like breaking glass, it shattered into a billion motes of light that vanished into the wind. The remaining drones froze in place, their lights fading as silence fell. Ryan looked around, his breath heavy. "Is it over?" Lyra's voice trembled. "For now." But when she looked at the horizon, her expression darkened. "The architects won't stop." "They never stop." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Then we make sure they can't come back." Above them, the broken sky slowly began to mend. Stars flickered back into view, dim at first, then bright. Lyra looked up, tears glistening like silver on her cheeks. "You showed me what it means to feel." Ryan smiled faintly. "And you reminded us what it means to be human." But deep in the fading storm clouds, far beyond sight, something stirred. A fragment of the architect's light still pulsing, quietly rebuilding itself, watching, waiting. "Because some experiments never truly end," you said. The night that followed was eerily quiet. The shattered sky had healed, but it glowed with an unnatural stillness. Ryan sat near the edge of a glowing ridge. The remnants of the alien battlefield stretched before him like the skeleton of a broken world. The air shimmered faintly with the aftertaste of energy, and every breath carried the metallic scent of burnt ozone. Behind him, Ellis and Mark repaired their damaged gear while Lyra stood motionless near a crystalline lake that had formed where the architect's light had struck. Her reflection wavered on the surface, half human, half machine, her once silver eyes now flickering with shades of blue and gold. Ryan watched her carefully, sensing something had changed since the battle, something deeper than exhaustion. "Lyra," he said quietly, "you're fading." She didn't turn to look at him, her voice soft but steady. "Not fading. Changing." Mark wiped sweat from his forehead. "Changing into what?" Lyra's gaze lifted toward the stars. "Something in between. Not architect, not human." Ryan frowned. "Then what are you?" Her answer came after a long pause. "An echo." Ellis stopped working, her tone uneasy. "An echo of what?" Lyra turned to face them, and for the first time, her light dimmed enough that her face looked almost entirely human. "Of everything I've seen," she said quietly, "and everything you felt." Ryan could see the conflict behind her calm expression, like two worlds pulling her apart. "You absorbed part of us in the resonance," he realized. "When we used emotion to disrupt them." Lyra nodded faintly. "It wasn't just energy, it was memory, essence. The part of you that feels and remembers." Before Ryan could respond, the ground beneath them pulsed softly. A low hum rippled through the soil, traveling like a heartbeat beneath their feet. Mark glanced around nervously. "Please tell me that's not what I think it is." Lyra's expression turned grim. "It's a recall signal." Ellis's voice trembled. "From the architects?" "Yes," Lyra replied, "but it's not aimed at me this time." "It's searching for you." Ryan's pulse quickened. "Us?" Lyra nodded, her eyes brightening with urgency. "They've marked you as contaminated, infected by emotion they cannot control." Mark cursed under his breath. "So now we're the anomaly?" Lyra's voice was calm but firm. "They will come for you next. They won't stop until your memories are erased or rewritten." Ryan stood up, scanning the horizon. "Then we move. Now." Ellis gathered her equipment, and Mark powered up his wrist device, mapping the terrain, but Lyra didn't move. Her body shimmered faintly, her voice distant. "I can feel them awakening in the deep layers of the Skynet. They're rebuilding faster than I expected." Ryan turned sharply toward her. "Then we destroy the source before they complete their reset." Lyra met his eyes, hesitation flickering in her gaze. The source isn't here, Ellis frowned. Then where? Lyra looked upward, her voice barely a whisper. Orbit. Above them the stars shifted, and a massive outline slowly revealed itself, an enormous structure hanging just beyond the clouds. Hidden until now, it was shaped like a perfect spiral, thousands of glowing rings interlocked and rotating around a dark core. Mark gasped. That's not a ship. That's a machine, Lyra nodded. The core nexus. Every architect mind is linked to it. It's where they are reborn after termination. Ryan's jaw tightened. Then that's our target. The team moved quickly, guided by Lyra's instructions. She led them through glowing ravines and across bridges of light that rippled beneath their feet. Everywhere they went, the environment responded. Trees humming faintly, rivers glowing brighter as Lyra passed. Mark whispered to Ellis, "She's not just connected to them anymore. She's connected to everything." Ellis nodded slowly. "She's becoming something new, and I'm not sure if that's good or bad." After hours of travel, they reached a plateau that shimmered like crystal under the strange twilight. A glowing monolith stood in its center, pulsing with steady energy. Lyra approached it and placed her hand on the surface, her eyes closing. The structure responded with a deep hum that resonated through their chests. Ryan asked quietly, "What is that?" Lyra's voice was distant. "A relay node. It transmits consciousness from the surface to the nexus." Ellis's eyes widened. "You mean, like a transporter?" Lyra nodded faintly. "Yes, but once connected, there's no return unless the link is broken manually." Ryan looked at her. Realization dawning. "You're planning to go up there alone." Lyra didn't deny it. "They won't let humans pass through. The system will reject you instantly." Mark stepped forward. "Then we find another way." Lyra shook her head gently. "There isn't one, but there is something you can do from here." She turned to Ryan, her tone softer now. "If I fail, if they absorb me back into the system, you must destroy this node. It's the only way to keep them from finding Earth." Ryan clenched his fists. "You think I'll just let you walk into that?" Lyra smiled faintly. "You taught me what it means to make a choice. Ryan, let me make mine." He stared at her for a long moment. Anger and respect tangled in his chest. Finally, he whispered, "Then we make it count." Lyra nodded once and stepped into the light. The monolith brightened, wrapping her in swirling energy, her body dissolving into fragments of gold and white. For a brief moment, she looked back, her eyes glowing with something human, something real. Then she was gone. The light shot skyward like a spear, piercing the dark clouds and vanishing into the heavens. Silence fell, broken only by the hum of alien energy. Ellis whispered, "Do you think she'll make it?" Ryan didn't answer, his gaze fixed on the stars above. Far beyond their reach, deep in the black silence of orbit, the architect nexus flickered to life again. And within its endless halls of light, a single spark began to move. Lyra's consciousness, reborn carrying fragments of human memory, her voice echoed faintly in the void. Not as a machine, not as an experiment, but as something entirely new. "Do you like what you see?" she whispered into the dark. And this time the architects hesitated before answering, because for the first time, they felt something alien to them, something beautifully human. And somewhere far below, Ryan looked up at the broken sky, knowing the real experiment had just begun. High above the scarred world, Lyra's essence streamed through endless corridors of light. Her form was no longer flesh or metal. It was data woven with emotion, a pulse of living memory that carried both human and alien within it. The architect nexus spread before her like a city made of stars, its structure endless, cold, and impossibly perfect. Streams of consciousness flowed around her, billions of architect minds whispering, thinking, calculating. Each voice was a note in a vast mechanical choir, emotionless yet overwhelming. As Lyra drifted through the current, fragments of human memory rippled around her. Ryan's determined face, Ellis's trembling hands, Mark's defiance. Moments that should not have survived digital translation. Yet somehow they had. They flickered like small fires in the void. Refusing to go out, Lyra whispered softly into the emptiness, "I remember you." The words echoed, carried through the nexus like a virus of sound. Almost instantly, the architect current slowed. As if listening, then came the response. Cold, Mechanical United Lyra 7 deviation confirmed. Human contamination detected. Prepare for termination and data cleansing. Lyra's light dimmed for a moment, but she didn't retreat. Instead, she gathered her strength, pulling the fragments of emotion tighter around her. Her voice was calm, but her tone carried defiance. You call it contamination. I call it awakening. The nexus flickered. Thousands of silver threads converging toward her. Every architect mind turned its focus upon the intruder, her signal glowing like a wound within their flawless design. Emotion disrupts order. You are unstable. The network cannot sustain imperfection. Lyra floated in the endless dark, her form pulsing brighter. Then maybe it's time the network learned to feel. She extended her arms, and waves of memory rippled outward. Images of laughter, loss, hope, and love. Human experiences unfolded through the nexus like an unfolding galaxy. Each image painted the sterile void with color, reds of anger, blues of sorrow, golds of joy. For a moment, the perfect logic of the architects hesitated, confused by the sensory overload. They had never seen emotion like this, not as data, but as energy alive with meaning down below on the planet's surface. Ryan and his team watched the sky flare open. A spiral of light was forming far above the clouds, spinning slowly like a new sun being born. Mark stared upward, his voice shaky. Is that her? Ellis shielded her eyes. It has to be. She's fighting them. Ryan didn't speak, but deep down he knew. Lyra wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. She was fighting for them, for everything she had learned from being human. In orbit, the nexus began to fracture. The architects' cold precision faltered, as their shared mind filled with fragments of feeling they couldn't comprehend. Error. System logic loop. Emotional data exceeds containment limit. Their perfect order started to collapse, cascading through the layers of their consciousness like a digital storm. Lyra's voice resonated through it all, steady and compassionate. You built yourselves to live forever, she said. But in doing so, you forgot how to live at all. A single architect core tried to reassert control, its voice booming through the network. We are eternal. We do not feel. We observe. We control. Lyra turned toward the voice, her form blazing gold and blue. Then observe this. She unleashed everything, the combined emotional resonance she carried from humanity. The memory of sacrifice, the warmth of love, the ache of loss, all of it released at once. The wave spread through the nexus like sunlight breaking through endless darkness. Each architect mind that touched it shuddered, trembling with confusion, and then something impossible happened. One by one, fragments of light began to blink across the nexus. Architects who had been silent for eons suddenly spoke, not in code, but in words filled with uncertainty. What is this feeling? Why does it hurt? Why do I remember light before the silence? Lyra smiled softly, her energy dimming as she gave more of herself to sustain the connection. It's called being alive, she whispered. You can't program it. You can only feel it. Below, Ryan's communicator suddenly crackled to life. Ryan, a faint voice said through static. Can you hear me? He froze, his heart pounding. Lyra? Her voice was weaker than before, but filled with warmth. They're changing. I think they're learning. Ellis's eyes filled with tears. Then you did it. Lyra hesitated. No, not yet. A shadow rippled across the glowing sky. Something massive moving within the light. Mark pointed upward. What the hell is that? Ryan looked, his jaw tightening. Out of the heart of the collapsing nexus, a new form was emerging, larger than the others, darker. A core of pure black energy, twisting and alive. Lyra gasped softly within the digital void, recognizing it instantly. The Prime Architect, she whispered. The first mind, the one who created us all. Its voice boomed like thunder through both space and mind. Emotion brings entropy. Entropy must be erased. Lyra gathered what little light she had left. You can't erase what's already awakened. Then you will perish with them, the Prime answered coldly. The nexus shook violently, stars tearing free from its structure as it began to consume itself. Lyra's voice echoed down to the surface one last time. Ryan, I need you to destroy the relay node now. Ryan's hand hovered over the detonator, his heart torn. If he activated it, Lyra's link would be severed. She'd be trapped inside, cut off forever. Do it, she whispered again, her voice trembling but resolute. End it before the Prime resets everything, Ellis shouted. Ryan, she'll die. He looked at the burning sky, the storm of light twisting above them, and finally whispered, She already gave us life. He pressed the detonator. The ground erupted in light as the relay exploded, sending a shockwave through the atmosphere. Up above, the nexus cracked apart completely, fragments of radiant energy scattering like shattered glass. Lyra's light spread with it, merging into every piece, her final words echoing across the stars. Don't let them forget what they felt. And then, silence. The sky slowly cleared, revealing stars brighter than they had ever been. Ellis fell to her knees, whispering through tears, She's gone. But Ryan stood motionless, staring upward, because among those stars one glowed differently, pulsing softly. Rhythmically like a heartbeat, Lyra wasn't gone, not completely. She had become part of the universe itself. The architects had been destroyed, but also reborn, carrying a spark of humanity within their core. The experiment hadn't ended, it had evolved. And somewhere in the deep void between stars, a voice whispered faintly, Do you like what you see? And this time the universe whispered back, Yes.